Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Stitches and Saws. I'm Ebony Fam, and in this video today we are going to make some pajama shorts. We are also going to need to know about things like fabric direction, the equipment you're going to need, and sewing rules. So let's get started. I'm very excited. Let's go. As you can see here, I've got two squares of fabric. I've got the wrong side and I've got the right side. See how it's more vibrant? When you have your right sides together, or your good sides facing inwards, when you open it out, ta-da, it's the right way around. So that's our rule, right sides together, or RST. Here's an image of a roll of fabric. As you can see, the weft, the warp, the selvages, and the raw edge and the bias. What you need to consider when you're laying out your fabrics is the direction of the pattern. So there's some examples here. Which do you think would be the correct direction of fabric? The middle is the answer because the rainbows are going the correct way. So this is how you would lay out your pattern onto your fabric to be correct. So that we have a nice finish of our pajamas, we need to remember our settings and our seam allowance measurements. You want to make sure that your pattern is facing the right way. So we want the top to be facing up, and we want the curve to go where your crotch is going to go. So when we put it on our body, this side here with the curve needs to be past your belly button to allow for seam allowance, and it's got to sit outside your hips a couple of centimeters so that you know it's going to fit comfortably. It's a lot easier to make your shorts a bit too big than it is to make them too small. Pin it on, doing the corners first. Leave that straight edge on the fold. Stick a few more pins in. Get your scissors. Start cutting. A tailor's chalk and a ruler is pretty handy too. What we need to do is measure 1.5 centimeters for our seam allowance in intervals along the length of the inner leg seam. We match these together. After we have measured our seam allowance and stuck in our pins, the next step is to tack. So we've got our needle and thread. The length is longer than our pants. and it's a colour that stands out. It doesn't have to be the same colour as the fabric. So it's a similar motion to pinning. We take the pins out as we go along the line. We want these tacking stitches to probably be about 1 centimetre long each. This is just a temporary stitch to keep our fabric together. Next step is to open out our seam and press it open just like this, making sure that we have the right temperature for our fabric, making sure that that's pressed out as far as it can go. We need to turn in the right way around. The other stays the wrong way. So I've got the leg that's turned right side out. I'll put it over my arm here, and I'm going to get my other leg, which is the wrong side out, and to put that inside there. Match my crotch points together and pin it. At that point, we want both seams to be facing outwards. So it should look like a big U shape. to get the casing ready for the elastic. So we just give the top of it an iron and allow our crotch seam to sit nice and flat. Remember to cut all your threads as you go, just to get into a good habit. So for our casing, what we need to do is we need to make one fold that is about 1 centimetre, like this, all the way around. And then our second fold, we'll be able to hold our elastic. So I usually do the front and the back first, where the seams are, and then I usually pull it out and do the sides, and it likes to sit nice and flat. Alright, so second fold, this one needs to be at least 3.5 to 4 centimetres. So we should be getting our tape measure and measuring 3.5, perfect. So obviously these are a little bit too long. What I'm going to do is measure and mark this inner leg seam here, and then I'm going to make it a little bit shorter, first off by folding it up. So I've already tried these on. I want the length to be somewhere about that. So I'm going to do one leg at a time. I'm going to measure the inner leg seam first, so 11 centimeters, and the outside leg is 37.5. So now what we need to do, we can press that measurement in. I've pressed that measurement, the nice neat clear line. And now what I can do is I can turn it around And I have a line. So this is going to be where my shorts finish. Beyond that, I need 3.5 centimeters longer than what you need it to be, so that I can have a fold where I can hide my raw edge. I'm going to cut that excess off. So now I'm going to iron that, fold it up and like that. So that's what our hem should look like all the way around. Make sure that that's opened out. So if you find when you're doing this, it's going to bunch when you sew it, your best option is to unpick this seam completely with your quick unpick up to where that first fold is, so it allows that seam to spread out and sit nice and flat. Just like that. Otherwise, if you were to sew the hem with it still together, it might make the outside layer bunch up and it doesn't look very neat. So we want to allow that to spread out so that it looks nice and neat and sits flat. So I'm going to use the 1.5 centimeter line for my seam allowance. I'm going to have a nice neat parallel line bottom of my shorts, and I'm going to backstitch at the start and at the end. Okay, so what I've done to one leg, I need to do to the other. So for this inner leg seam here, that was 11 centimeters. From the waistband, top of the waistband to the bottom here was 38.5 centimeters. So I'm going to do the same thing to this side. hems with a nice straight stitch. And now we are up to our pocket. So with this pocket, I've prepared it already. I've pressed it in and I've just pinned it in the position that I wanted. So that was 10.5 centimeters from the top. Now what I want to do is tack that on. Remember, we are only going through one layer. We don't want to do both layers, otherwise you're not going to get your pants on to your body. So I'm going to use the little window here, the outer edge of that window next to my needle. I've got to double check that I'm not sewing over 2 layers, otherwise I'm going to have to re-unpick a fair bit. And then I'm also going to reinforce the tops of the pocket with a back stitch. All done! Ta-da!